William's fingers trembled as he pressed them against the crystalline wall of Maya's chamber. The surface pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to respond to his touch, shifting from deep violet to pale azure. He had been inside her room for exactly 47 minutes. The digital readout on his environmental suit confirmed it, and still had no idea how to get out. The research station orbiting Kepler 442b had seemed like humanity's greatest achievement when he'd arrived 6 months ago. A joint venture between Earth's United Nations Space Exploration Division and the indigenous Velari species who called this system home. Cultural exchange, they'd called it. A bridge between civilizations separated by thousands of light years of evolutionary divergence. Maya had been assigned as his xenolinguistics partner on day 1. She stood barely 4 feet tall, with skin that shimmered like mother-of-pearl under the station's artificial lighting. Her eyes, 3 of them, arranged in a triangular pattern on her face, were the color of liquid mercury, constantly shifting and reflecting her emotions in ways William had spent months learning to read. Her people communicated as much through bioluminescent patterns on their skin as through their melodic, almost song-like language. From the beginning, Maya had been attentive, more than attentive. She'd bring him samples of Velari literature translated into English. She'd adjust the atmospheric composition in their shared lab space to exactly 21% oxygen, even though Velari preferred 18%. She'd learned to brew coffee, a beverage completely foreign to her species, just because she'd observed William drinking it every morning. William had noticed, of course. How could he not? But he'd maintained professional distance, convinced himself it was just Velari hospitality, cultural differences, nothing more. The xenopsychology briefings had warned against anthropomorphizing alien behavior, against projecting human emotions and motivations onto fundamentally different neurological architectures. Then came yesterday. Maya had entered their lab with her skin flickering in patterns William had never seen before, rapid pulses of pink and gold that seemed almost nervous. Through their shared translation device, she'd invited him to her private quarters. To share something important, the device had rendered her speech. Something only for William. He should have declined. Protocol dictated limited personal interaction outside professional settings, but Maya's 3 eyes had held something that transcended species barriers: hope, vulnerability, the universal language of someone taking an enormous risk. So he'd gone. Her quarters were unlike anything on the human section of the station. The walls weren't walls at all but living membranes that breathed and shifted colors. The floor felt like walking on dense foam, responding to pressure in ways that suggested some form of consciousness. And everywhere, there were what he could only describe as gifts, crystallized fragments of her world's native minerals arranged in patterns that human aesthetic theory would call beautiful, but which Velari art science indicated represented deeply personal expressions. Maya had gestured for him to sit on what passed for furniture in Velari design, a raised platform that molded itself to his body weight. She dimmed the ambient light and began to. Perform was the only word William could think of. Her skin erupted in cascading patterns of color and light, synchronized with melodic vocalizations that the translator couldn't fully render. It was stunning, overwhelming, and clearly, unmistakably, meant for him alone. When she finished, she'd moved closer, close enough that William could see the microscopic scales on her skin shifting with each breath. She'd spoken directly, without the translator, 3 words in heavily accented but clear English. "You understand now." William had frozen. The implications crashed through his mind like a meteor strike through a hull breach. This wasn't cultural exchange. This wasn't academic collaboration. Maya had been courting him for months in the carefully choreographed manner of her species, and he'd been too blind, too trapped in his own assumptions to see it. "Maya, he'd started, but she'd cut him off with a gesture, her skin flashing crimson. Embarrassment, he'd learned, or perhaps shame. She'd touched a panel on the wall and a door had irised open behind her. "Wait here," the translator had said, rendering her suddenly formal tone. "I will return with proper documentation. Humans require paperwork, yes, for connections of significance." Before William could respond, she'd slipped through the door and it had sealed behind her. That was 47 minutes ago, now 48. William had tried everything. The door wouldn't respond to his touch. His communication link to the station's main systems was blocked. Maya's quarters appeared to have privacy shielding he hadn't anticipated. The room itself seemed to be waiting, the walls pulsing with slow, patient rhythms. He paced the small space, mind racing. What was Maya thinking right now? That he'd rejected her, that he'd stayed because he reciprocated. The xenopsychology briefings hadn't covered this scenario. There was no protocol for accidentally led alien colleague to believe interspecies romantic interest while actually being completely oblivious. The truth was more complicated than simple obliviousness, though. William had noticed Maya, had found himself looking forward to their daily collaborations, had appreciated the coffee she made, even though it tasted slightly off because she'd tried, had caught himself wondering what those luminescent patterns meant, whether the way she'd linger near his workstation indicated anything beyond professional interest. He'd noticed, and he'd been terrified of what that noticing might mean. Humans and Velari were compatible in the ways that mattered for basic interaction, similar gravity requirements, overlapping atmospheric preferences, no biochemical incompatibilities that made proximity dangerous. But romantically, culturally, the data points were insufficient. There were no precedents, no guidelines, no reassuring case studies to reference. The wall nearest him flashed suddenly from blue to bright yellow. William jumped back as a new door materialized, irising open to reveal not Maya, but her dwelling unit mate, a Velari male named Thuron. His skin patterns were stern, dark blues and sharp whites. "Human William," Thuron's translator rendered his clicking speech. "Maya has requested I convey message. She believes she has caused you distress. She wishes to know if you require extraction from commitment space." "Commitment space," William's voice cracked slightly. "You are in her bonding chamber," Thuron explained, his skin shifting to more neutral tones, perhaps sympathy. "Among Velari, to enter such a space after courtship display indicates acceptance of potential pair bond. Maya believes perhaps human customs differ. She is currently with the station counselor, seeking advice on proper human rejection protocols." Thuron's three eyes focused on William with unsettling intensity. "Do you wish extraction?" William opened his mouth, closed it. Every rational thought screamed that this was beyond his training, his expertise, his comfort zone. Interspecies relationships were theoretical at best, potentially catastrophic at worst. There would be paperwork, review boards, psychological evaluations. His career trajectory would be irrevocably altered. But in his mind's eye, he saw Maya's skin flashing those nervous gold and pink patterns, saw the careful arrangement of crystals around the room, each one chosen specifically for him. Remembered 6 months of small kindnesses, of genuine curiosity about his world, of someone seeing past species boundaries to the person underneath. "No," William said quietly. Then louder, "No extraction, but Thuron, I need to talk to Maya. I need her to understand that humans. We need time. We need conversation. We need to figure out what this means together slowly. Can you tell her that?" Thuron's skin shifted through several rapid patterns William couldn't fully interpret. "You wish to pursue bonding evaluation." "I wish to pursue understanding," William corrected. "With Maya. If she's willing to be patient with a very confused human who has a lot to learn about Velari courtship." For the first time, Thuron's skin displayed what William had learned to recognize as Velari amusement, quick flickers of light green. "Maya will be pleased, also relieved. She has been composing rejection acceptance poetry for 30 minutes. It is very bad poetry." Despite everything, William laughed. Thuron tapped the wall and the main door irised open. Maya stood in the corridor beyond, her skin a chaos of conflicting patterns, hope and fear and anticipation all swirling together. When she saw William, the pattern stilled, focusing into a single question mark of shimmering light. William stepped forward. "Maya," he said, speaking slowly so the translator could render his words properly. "I need to apologize. I didn't understand what you were showing me. Not because it wasn't clear, but because I wasn't ready to see it. Humans. We're sometimes very dense about these things." Maya's skin flickered, confusion, question. "What I'm trying to say is, I'd like to understand. Not just your courtship customs, but you. If you're willing to teach a very slow-learning human, I'd like to try." The transformation of Maya's skin patterns was immediate and spectacular. Cascading waves of gold and pink and colors William didn't have names for, all radiating outward from her central torso, in expressions of joy that needed no translation. She stepped closer, reached up, and very carefully took his hand in her three-fingered grip. Her skin was warm, slightly electric, alive with possibility. "We learn together," she said in English, her accent thick but her meaning crystal clear. "Slowly, no paperwork yet." William smiled, squeezed her hand gently, and together they stepped back into her chamber, no longer a trap but a beginning. The door sealed behind them, and the walls pulsed with welcoming light.